Thank you for joining us. This is the first, I believe, the first set of sessions for the Chicago Innovation Tech workshops. So I appreciate your decision to join us for this one. We hope that you obviously enjoy it and learn some things you can take away into your own practice and design. So to get started today, I think what we're going to do first is I'm going to just kind of give a lay of the land of what we're going to get out of this workshop. We're going to discuss together a number of things around the topic of parametric LCA and ESG. This will have a specific focus of using the BOM as a computational design software to help you to apply these things to your projects and to your models. And we'll show you how to do that. We'll do a couple of hands-on demos. And we're also, as you've noticed, like I know for me personally, this is my first time using a virtual collaborative platform that's as engaging and as involved as what we're in now, UME Studio. So we've got Daniel here that's going to assist for a little while to make sure that things are running smoothly. And we want to also help everyone, get comfortable where we're at. We know it's a new kind of experience. So there's a lot of screens, there's a lot of things going on, but let's just take it nice and slow. We'll have a good time. Yeah, let's go ahead and jump in. So what you should be seeing in the conversation tab, which is you'll see on the top left, little blue icon with little people. Click on that and make sure you're in that. That's kind of where you'll be to see the content that I'm going to be sharing. But you also each have your own virtual workstation. This is essentially your own computer that's ready to go. It has everything that you need already installed. So we're not going to waste time installing Rhino or installing Revit or anything like that today. That's already been done thanks to the guys at UME. So applause to those guys for sure. But we'll get into the VM and everything like that when we go into the hands-on demos, but you'll just kind of see up at the top where you see conversations. You've also got another button there that's your personal workstation. So myself as the host, I have access to be able to see all of your workstations and what you're doing. You also have the opportunity to share your workstation with the rest of us who are in the workshop, which is going to be really great for having this really nice back and forth. Let's see your struggles. What do you need help with, or you want to show something? So really excited to be able to try this method of teaching and learning together with you guys. But what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and star the presentation that I'm going to be going through today during the workshop. And we're going to work through this together. I've got a number of slides that you'll also have access to be able to download after the workshop, and I'll send you links to all of the files and everything after the workshop as well, so you can have it on your own machines. But what we're going to do is go ahead and jump in here, and let's talk about some of the objectives that we want to get out of this workshop. Why did we feel like we wanted to put a workshop like this on? I think it's so internally, as an organization at Buro Happold, we sort of strive to work as a transdisciplinary engineering consultancy. So we work across a lot of different boundaries. And to be able to facilitate that, we've developed a product called the BOM, the Buildings and Habitats Object Model. So we're going to go into what is it? Why did we make it? What does it do? And hopefully, we can help connect some dots to help you kind of see that it can be useful in your own way of working, and especially with this specific connection to life cycle assessment, to the way that you work in Rhino and Grasshopper. So we'll primarily be focused in that environment, Rhino and Grasshopper, but it's not limited to that, and I'll go into more detail about that later. And then this next bullet here, how can I use the LCA toolkit in my parametric workflows? And then we'll talk about next steps. Here's the overall workshop schedule that we're going to try to follow today. I've tried to sort of structure this in a way that allows us to have a good discussion, back and forth. So I encourage you all to just, let's keep this conversation as fluid as possible. I appreciate, there's a few of us using cameras. If you feel you're in a place you can do that, pop your camera on, say hello. We'll do a little round of introductions just to, help everyone meet each other and stay connected after the conference. I'd like to introduce my team as well. We'll do that in the next slide. But yeah, we encourage you to pop on a camera, unmute yourself if you can, and shout at any point if you have questions and want to chat. So yeah. So this is our tentative sort of workshop schedule. We're going to go through an introduction to BOM, and we're going to all kind of click around while we have Daniel, while we have his time here, to make sure that we're not going to, we don't run into any problems that I don't know how to fix. This is also my first time using this, so we'll kind of experiment, click around here, and then we will. The next section here will go into BOM LCA datasets and workflows. We'll talk about what that means, how to create your own datasets, what we currently have as an offering as far as datasets go. And I really want to set you off on a path to be able to create your own content and use it in your workflows. We'll have a little break in the middle just to give my voice a break and get some coffee, take a minute to breathe, and then we'll meet back where we'll go over more in depth the BOM LCA workflow using a parametric model, which I've prepared for you guys today. And then with a challenge, you'll be able to kind of go away within that last hour and make your own parametric study, connect the wires yourselves, make your own objects, things like that. And then what we'll do to finish up, we'll go over sort of next steps. I'll introduce you to some of our other open source repositories and kind of get you familiar with the BOM in general. I'll invite you all to contribute to the BOM and just get involved in the code itself as well. So yeah, I should also say, as far as like communication here in the UME studio, if you hover over, you might see like a little window with your name or your camera. If you're sharing camera, there's a little hand raise, and the shortcut is Alt-Y. You can raise your hand at any point in time, and that tells me I have a little window on the side, who has a question. So that will help me kind of understand who needs what. There's also a chat function. So up at the top right, you can click on chat, and that opens up a window, and you can ask any question you want there. Got that open. We'll try to keep tabs. And then also all of our Buro Happold team that have joined us today will be helping me to kind of look out for the questions and make sure that we get some good answers. So, okay, so let's go. We'll go ahead and yes, thanks, Daniel, breaking the ice. Let's go ahead and have a bit of an introduction of each of our teams. So there's 5 of us here today. I think we are actually all here, which is amazing. So props to you guys. We're all in different time zones. So why don't we start up here at the top and yeah, just tell us a little bit about yourself, Ofik, and what you do at Buro Happold. Oh, I see him.
I'm sorry, I'm not. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm also going to start.
I've never used UME Studio, so I'm getting used to it a
little bit. Neither have most of us, so we're learning. Yeah.
I'm Ofek Bruce. I've been at Buro Happold here coming up on 2 years, actually. And I am a sustainability engineer. And I'm working with Michael to spearhead the Healthy Materials Toolkit, which, according to the agenda, it looks like we'll be covering a little bit towards the end. And yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet.
Nice, thanks, Ovik. Let's see, who did we have next? Alessio, go for it. Oh, can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Alessio. Alessio Lombardi. I work as interoperability lead here at BH. Been around for about 4 years now. So my work here, actually, my focus lately has been shifting towards machine learning a bit more. But so far, my focus has been on the kind of how do you transfer data between different areas of the BOM. I've contributed to the base BOM adapter project and to several structural engineering toolkits as well. So yeah, I'm a bit too everywhere. So feel free to ask me any questions on any of these areas. Very happy to be involved.
Nice, thanks, Alessio. Next up, we've got Travis. I'll go ahead and star you for everyone as well. Oh, can't hear you. You might need to adjust which mic it defaulted to. And remember to click the apply button because I forgot that my first time. So.
Hello?
Yes, nicely done.
Hello?
Hey, we can hear you. Can hear you. We might give Travis a minute to sort it out. But let's hop over to Al here.
Okay, can you hear?
Yeah, let's buy Travis some time here. No, I'm kidding.
In 20 minutes. Well, introduce myself. No,
Yeah.
very quickly. Hi, I'm Al. I'm director of Buro Happold. Been at Buro Happold for I think 16 years now, so a long while. I oversee everything to do with computational development and computational engineering across the whole global practice. I'm based over here in the London office. UK, sorry, in the Bath office at the moment. Don't even know where I am. At Bath office at the moment, over in the UK. And so, yeah, excited to be here. My role at Buro Happold, my relationship with the BOM is have the luxury of being a sort of co-creator of the BOM from its very origins. So excited to be here.
Awesome, thanks, Al. I'm seeing from Travis that he's been locked out and won't let him back in. So I'm trying to. It says it looks like you're still logged in from another tab. Please close the tab and come back in. So, not sure how we can help Travis.
Michael, I'll give Travis some help via email.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Al. Somehow I just don't even believe that you're in London. So who knows where in the world is Al Fisher? But okay, and then lastly here, my name is Michael Hain. I'll be the primary instructor for this workshop. I am the operations lead for our computational engineering team. So just kind of monitoring and understanding the ways we work and trying to facilitate greater means of change through new technology and through applications and processes. I also head up our community efforts, so the social side of what we do in the development team. So making sure that people are connected and know where to go to find the help that they need. And we feel like we've got a pretty tight knit computational collective internally to BH, which is a group of people about 500 strong. And we're massively interested in designing these kinds of workflows and applying them on projects. So, and I should also say I'm an architect by background, which is where I came in contact with Haram, who is the director of the conference last year. So together we sort of have been planning a few of the details of the conference. So happy to be here and hope you enjoy the workshop and the rest of your time at the Chicago Tech Symposium. I see Travis has joined us again. Do we want to try to give it another shot? Travis?
Let's see, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'm Travis. I'm working with the BOM team for a bit now, mostly focused on the Revit tool side of things, where we apply more the core base BOM libraries to our workflow in the add-in. Currently doing some cool stuff around extraction of elements and calculations over it, and to help teams move along faster in the workflow. So if you have any questions about Revit tools, or the use of the bomb outside of Grasshopper, I'm here to help.
Awesome. Thanks, Travis. Glad you were able to get back in as well. Um, all righty. So I would love to actually, as a part of this introductory moment in time in the workshop, is just open it up to you guys. Yeah, if you'd like to unmute yourselves and say hello, just let us know who you are, what interested you in signing up for this workshop the most, and yeah, what are you looking forward to learning while you're here? Yeah, just I could randomly call on someone, or you could just, I don't know, the best way to
How
go
about you
about it.
use the hand? So if you want to
use the
go in
hand.
some sort of order, just raise your hand with the icon on that little toolbar next to your camera, and then Michael can call on you.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. Don't be shy. There we go. John, right?
Yep.
Yeah, go for it.
How's it going? I think we've met a couple times. My name's John. I'm an architect. I actually work in-house for a large pharmaceutical company. Yeah, I guess super interested in seeing what you guys are up to. Yeah, I think that there's just like a whole untapped world that that architects really should be considering when it comes to like parametric design and looking at LCA. So yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for joining, John. Yeah, and I do remember meeting last year as well. And I remember you discussing some Revit work you were doing. So you should definitely connect with Mr. Travis Potter here today. He'd be very interested to see what you're doing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else want to say hello? Yeah, go ahead, Moon.
Hello. As I just turned on the camera even before, so I was kind of ready to start. Yeah, I'm Moon. I'm also an architect. I'm a researcher at the University of Stuttgart at ILEC. I'm currently working on developing a facade modules, and I am on the phase of to construct and developing and the construction. So at the moment, I'm really interested in the as the biggest topic of our research group is sustainability and adaptability. And also some of our colleagues are into researching on LCA, and I also have heard a couple of times about from his research, but I want to also know by myself how it goes and what kind of material it will be beneficial for my research, and also the behavior, and also it's related to the parametric behavior of the facade module. So yeah, very looking forward. Thank you for the organizing.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you for the intro. Thanks for saying hello. Yeah, we've got a few others. Don't see any more hands, but please feel free to pipe in. We'll maybe give another minute or two for those that want to introduce themselves, and then we'll move along. Okay, I'm not seeing any more activity, so we'll just, at any point in time in the workshop, preferably not like while we're doing like a live demo or something like that, but feel free to just shout and introduce yourself. So we'll keep things moving. Okay, so this gets us, we've kind of been navigating UME Studio. This is where we're going to collaborate today. I'm going to be sharing what I'm doing in my virtual machine. I have the same setup that you guys will have. So I'll be sharing that, and you can work alongside me on your own personal virtual machine. I think you all, I think we set it up, if I'm not mistaken, Daniel, like where it spun up as soon as they joined the session. So your virtual workstation should be live right now. So why don't we go ahead and just so everyone can be kind of on the same page, up at the top, you should see something that says your personal VW. Go ahead and click that.
And Michael, for you, go over to the all VWs and you can start scanning around and you'll see people's mice moving.
Yeah, it's loading for me here. I do see everyone has at least an instance here, so that's good. Just give it a second. Make sure I see something on everyone's. Does the VM have Vim installed? I explicitly said not to install Vim. They wanted to, but I said not to. So no, not true. Okay, I'm seeing a few pop up here. This is great.
So in your virtual workstations, you can close that Omniverse stuff that popped up. That was just set to auto load.
Yeah, awesome. Looks like everyone's got one. Cool. So from here, I can help each one of you individually, right? You also have the opportunity to share your virtual workstation in our conversation area where we've just been kind of hanging out, where we just did intros. You see the PowerPoint and all of that. You should see a little plus sign just below your name or your camera, wherever you've moved that on the screen. If you click that plus, you can you'll see the option for sharing your virtual workstation. So let's go ahead and try that together. So click that plus and then add your virtual workstation. Okay, now I'm seeing, yep, Travis, you've been starting to come in. It's great. So once I see a few more here, we'll move along. So the great thing about this this view is that we can now sort of see what other people in the class are doing. So I can't share your work with the class, but you have that option to do that, and you're certainly not required to do that or anything. But it does help when we're trying to learn together. You know, I think we're all going to be learning quite a bit with the bomb specifically today, and then learning about different workflows. So will be helpful to share your screen where possible. So I'm going to use let's see this one here. So I'm going to star Nervik. I'm going to star your screen here. So this should pop up and enlarge for everyone. So what we can do, let's all try this together. And Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think everyone can click and point at things on everybody's screens, right?
That's right.
So if you hover over Nervik's screen here that I've starred and hold your mouse down, you should see your name pop up. Well, you won't actually see your name, but your cursor will change to a color, right? So we can see everyone else's cursor. So this may look annoying, right? Like seeing all the cursors flying around, but this is actually how we can kind of point and talk through things without, you know, blocks of text and, you know, get to the point a little bit quicker. So we can do that on anyone's VM. So I'm just going to click around. And that's sort of the real beauty of being able to share this workspace together. So, okay. So thank you. I'm glad to see that worked. We're going to make good use of that in one of we have 2 exercises today. So you can go ahead and remove that if you want. And you can do that by, I think it's the three dots up at the top. But let's go ahead and we'll click through the rest of this first section of the PowerPoint, and then we're going to get into our first exercise together. So I'm going to, yep, already started. So you should see the PowerPoint again moving on your screen. So I'm going to share something from my desktop. We're going to watch a little video together just as an introduction. and I'll apologize in advance. This video does have pretty epic sound to it. It's got a whole, soundtrack, but you won't get that experience today. But I did provide it for you so that you can download it afterwards and listen to it if you'd like. But I'm going to go ahead and share this, and I'll start it so that it pops up on yours. Okay. So this is a video that's going to walk through sort of our fundamental approach to the bomb, right? And I'll sort of narrate this as it plays along, and then we'll dive into the rest of the section here. So. The gist is we have lots and lots of different representations of models, different objects, different workflows. They all do different things. But those models are very, very tricky to have them interact, if they interact at all. What the bomb is trying to do is operate as this intermediary that negotiates between the different software. So it's an interoperability utility. So it does this through adapters. So it can adapt from one software to another using a common language schema. This, we feel, democratizes the whole approach to co-creation and co-design in our own familiar ways of working in the AEC industry. So you can have people from all different walks of life, backgrounds, and expertise working in their own space, but they can also share data back and forth using the bomb, because we're handling the interoperability. So things don't have to stay in Revit, for example. They can move outside of Revit very freely. Things don't have to stay in Excel or in your SQL database. You can push and pull. So basic gist of the bomb. We'll go into a little more detail here. So I'm going to stop sharing this here. Let me turn that off. And hopefully, I don't know about frame rate, if that was a bit jumpy or anything like that, but please go back and check it out with the rest of the course content. So I'm going to go ahead and restart our presentation. Okay, here we go. So in general, we're all here. The few of you that did introduce yourselves and give us a little bit of background as to like what interested you in this workshop and what you're currently up to. We're generally trying to solve a problem. We're trying to understand, how we can make the world a better place, make our projects, better, more sustainable, healthier, all of those good things. But this is actually not a super easy thing, and especially when you're doing it kind of alone or in isolation, or even just within your office, right? It can become, the task becomes quite immense. You quickly realize that you need some help. You need to actually collaborate. So we focus on this word co-authoring design. We want to actually, work with and interact with people, with designers of all walks and expertise. And to do that, we need to do things like this, where we're meeting face to face, explore and test things, understand our workflows together, understand like what does good look like in our workflow and what we're trying to achieve. But it all needs to start with that, kind of fundamental question of, what is that problem that we're trying to solve? When you think about, the problem itself, as I mentioned, it can quickly become what we've kind of been leaning into, the word called a wicked problem, right? It's a problem that cannot be solved with one particular thing. Climate change is a great example, right? It's easy to point to, okay, we'll just eliminate all fossil fuel burning vehicles and problem solved. But those of you who have looked into this field a little bit closer will understand it's not quite that simple, right? There's a lot of other things that go into it. You remove that drain, you create it somewhere else. You remove this impact, you kind of elevate another one somewhere else. And it becomes harder and harder to process all of the intricate connections that we have in our environment. And what we're seeing are these three core issues that we've outlined here. There's when we approach co-authoring and trying to solve these problems, we're dealing with model complexity on a level that it seems like um, each year things just get more and more complicated, right? The buildings get increasingly just bigger in size, but also in scope. The disciplines required to coordinate become more and more. Um, so you could see a couple of examples here. Like this is just a snapshot of some of our models that are our working models at Buro Happold. And then moving towards the center here, our processes are becoming increasingly more complicated, right? Some are writing custom code, some are developing their own applications, some are, using Notepad for everything and saving it or encrypting it. Like you never know, right? It just becomes more and more complicated. So trying to work within those challenges can be quite restricting, quite overwhelming. And then this last one here, problem complexity, I already alluded to it, as far as climate emergency that we're facing right now, the number of growing problems it's kind of running away from us. So we feel that the only real way to solve this is by actually working together instead of, trying to solve it in one go. So the bomb is how we're proposing that we're doing that, along with obviously the way that we work. So this was a little bit of a highlight of what was in the video already that we've watched, but just showing here that you may have a typical building, but actually what we'd like to do is show that you can kind of break that building down into a variety of representations. So you've got things like your environments model or a massing that you want to evaluate for solar radiation levels, or a mechanical system. Anything that's in your wheelhouse, a facade study. Each one of those representations then kind of has this ripple down effect, right? Where you have your own representations of each of these that creates yet another stream of data. And then with the underlying tools that facilitate that, right, it becomes more and more complicated. But what we'd like to do is just kind of show that using data, using something like the BOM, which is a data schema and a dictionary, we can actually disseminate that data, pass it across disciplines, no matter where they're coming from. So each discipline can kind of rely on their dictionary of objects and their properties, can customize them, and it's also, because these objects, their definitions are open source, people can freely contribute to them, understand them, and see what they're capable of doing, which we'll get into today. With the focus on, just to hit again, interoperability, composability, and extensibility are very important factors to what we're doing. And we believe that with a focus on these critical things, we can start to kind of chip away at that wicked problem with a little more success. This is just a quick overview, just to help solidify the concept. The traditional way of working requires a lot of redundancy, requires a lot of bespoke connections to software. And with the BOM, we're seeking to just alleviate that by providing a translator. It's an easy way to think of it. So in between each of the sections, I'm going to have little sections like this, right, that are going to have a prompt for you guys. This is a workshop, so fully, I encourage you again to unmute. Let's have a discussion. I'd really love to, hear from you on your perspectives. The things that I just went over, is this something that you've experienced in your own work? This kind of facing challenges of interoperability, or, what are some of the questions that you're facing when you go to design something? What are your clients asking for? Those kinds of things. Would anyone like to chip in with some of their perspectives? What are you guys seeing on the ground? Yeah, Nervik. Yeah. And you guys, You guys, yeah, like Daniel's typing in the chat, go ahead and unmute. You don't have to worry about talking over each other or anything like that. We'll be all right.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Nirvik. Unfortunately, there's a OBS conflict with my camera, so I can't switch on the camera.
No problem.
Thanks. I just wanted to chime in here and say that um, we see this need for extensive interoperability, and I think it's very interesting, the idea of BOM. That it can, if we have a published source of single source of data of truth, and then there could be various desktop and web-based applications. uh, so, and especially with the emergence of machine learning tools, it's even more interesting to see how various APIs can connect to this information. And I look forward to seeing that from this, and gathering, because you guys have a head start on this. So gathering some more knowledge about that. How
Hmm.
can various, you know, simple or small applications also make use of various types of information embedded in the BIM that designers, structural engineers, and maybe other fabricators, for example, put together. So long, in concisely, I want to say that I'm very interested in understanding the space of partial but multiple sources of BIM. How can we grab information from multiple sources and have them connect together in our little ad hoc application that we have? Maybe it's a machine learning application or a visualizing tool on the web. So that. All right,
Hmm.
thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome, Nervik. Thank you for that. I know we ask ourselves the same question every day in our work. I mean, because I mentioned we have different disciplines and teams, and it's always exciting when you see the light bulb go off that it's like, oh, it's just data. I can just share that data, you know. And we'll do a little bit of that today, and I'll show you guys how to set up, a push and a pull and things like that in the BOM. We won't actually be able to go into like the full capability of it, but I hope that it's enough to pique your interest that you can, you can kind of go on with our help. You have our contacts now, and we can, we can assist you. Yeah, let's keep this question up. Let's
Just some
keep this question
instructions.
up for just another minute. I'd love to hear. I know we've got some individuals in the room um, that have even made their own things, to try to solve some of these dilemmas. Or those of you that are kind of thinking about the next steps of defining your own workflows. How are you going to overcome that, that challenge that you foresee in your workflow? So we'll leave just another few seconds. If anyone wants to unmute and share your thoughts, really appreciate that. Yeah, otherwise we'll just keep plowing along. Thank you for sharing that, Nervik. We'll keep on going here. So refresher here. We're going to see in the demo script that I've got for you guys. There's a lot of different BOM objects that have their own properties and things like that we can start to embed layers of rich information in that, and we could use it we're going to use it for LCA today. So this is a little bit of what that looks like. So just, what is a wall, right? And any of you who have worked in Revit kind of understand that there's always layers of information that you could access. You could kind of drill down. But what we want to do with the BOM is to expose just the fundamental core definitions of each of these objects. So what is a wall? And then using that, physical element wall, we can start to embed additional information. Maybe it has an opening. What are the edges? What's the materiality, which is what we'll be focusing on today. So we'll look into that a little bit more. Um, so what this is showing is sort of like we've got the sort of underlying analytical representation. We've got some specific metadata that, those two things together combine to make an individual discipline object representation. And keep in mind, you can have lots of different disciplines. So each discipline can define their own things. But at the end of the day, as long as, that relationship is sorted, it will all work out. This is just, please refer back to this. I'm giving you this whole presentation for your reference, but I've just included some more information here. You can go back and read if you're interested in understanding a little bit more about the BOM. But this is just going to show basically the different levels of what is a BOM object, different representations, things like that. And we'll kind of step through together in a bit. This is again just kind of showing people can be focused on their own representations using their own objects and definitions. And with this in mind, LCA and healthy building materials, ESG related things, each discipline, as soon as they become, informed about that, they can start imbuing their objects or the things within their scope and what they're thinking of, they can start informing their objects of that metadata. And then just very quickly, as we wrap up this first section, what is the BOM, right? I've said a lot of things, and to some extent, some of those things may be very abstract and difficult to kind of grasp if you haven't seen or used the BOM in the past. But very simply, you can refer back to this diagram as well. The BOM is comprised of lots of toolkits. Toolkits consists of the following. They don't have to have all three of these things, but a lot of our toolkits do this if they're fully adapter-based toolkits. So there's an adapter. This is how you push and pull to and from a different platform or software. There's an engine if you want to apply any sort of transformations or calculations or queries on any kind of object, you can write engine methods. And then there's the object model itself, which is kind of at its core is that dictionary where you can define things. And we'll crack open some code and kind of look at it as well. And they're just generally our VMs already have BOM installed, and we have both Rhino and Revit. We don't have Excel to show or work in today, but I do have an example for you in the course content that you can go back in and look at for a more advanced workflow, which I'll get into towards the end of the workshop today. But the BOM is visible. So once you install it on your own machine, the BOM is visible in 3 of our UIs that we support currently. And this is what it looks like. It'll be exposed in the ribbon of your software. So in Grasshopper, and then in Revit and in Excel. Again, and just to conclude this section, this is how we're connecting everything to everything, everyone to everything, and everyone to everyone, and that's how we can start to tackle some of these larger conversations, these wicked problems. We'll just flick through the rest of these here. And this is sort of where we're at today, doing a workshop together, right? We're trying to transform the way that we structure our code, the way that we design workflows to be able to improve our way of thinking and working together. So let's go ahead and we'll shift into this next portion here. Before we do that, I want to have just a moment if anyone wants to raise a hand, ask a question, anything I've gone over before we dive into the actual workflow. Just kind of pause for just a minute. Refresh my voice. All right, don't see any hands, but again, feel free if you do have one. So now we're gonna go more specifically into the LCA side of things. So we've talked about the foundation of the BOM. You kind of understand, at a very basic level right now that we're talking about interoperability framework, and that we can use this somehow in our tools. So what I'm going to show you now is the BOM plus LCA. And we're going to look at a typical kind of workflow. We're going to understand, why it's important to consider this. What kinds of things did we do to get started with LCA and the BOM? And we will, I don't know if I got my time right on that. I'm trying to see here. So I'm a little, okay, so I'm a little behind, but we'll catch up here. So there's lots of different solutions out there, and there's way more than what I'm showing here. These are just a few that we use internally quite often when we're talking about LCA. We're talking about performing an LCA on a project. There's things like Tally, there's things like OneClick, EC3 is great as well, but then there's also the BOM. So let's take a look and see, what are the tools that you guys are currently using when you're, what are the tools that you guys are using in your own practice? Are you performing LCAs right now? Is that a sort of standard thing that you're doing? Is that something you're looking to integrate into your practice? I'd love to hear from someone in the room. What are you guys currently using? Maybe ask the question differently. Is anyone currently performing an LCA on a project, or have you ever done it before? And it's okay if not, but I'd love to know where you guys stand. I see a few are typing, so happy to.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, yes, Ken.
Hi. Yeah, yes, I do LCA and I use OneClick for it.
OneClick.
Yeah.
Yeah, OneClick is a really interesting one because, and we'll get into the data set component of OneClick and Tally and those things. It's a really interesting one. I'd love to have more of a conversation about that as well. Anyone else want to chime in? What are you guys currently doing? And then I'll ask. Was that Maha that was speaking? Sorry, I didn't catch who had the mic.
It's Lila.
Leela?
Yeah.
Oh, hi. Sorry. I saw that Maha was typing, and I was like,
No
okay,
worries.
maybe that was okay. So
I'm from Hungary and I'm architect. Yeah.
awesome,
Nice to
awesome.
meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Nice to meet you. So I was going to ask a follow-up question, which just slipped my mind because I stumbled over who was speaking. I'll see if I can remember it. But basically, so if you're using OneClick, oh yes, I remember. What's the sort of phase of the project that you're using OneClick for? Would it be like early stage, you say, or is it more late in the game where like you can't really change anything?
Yeah, I can answer on that too. So I use it for early stage and both the detail design phase. So as far as I know, there are these two options: the carbon designer and then the detailed calculation. So I use for both stages.
Okay, awesome. I think I asked because a lot of people are hesitant and can't really see the value in the LCA because they wait so long in the process to perform an LCA, or it's sort of like an output to designing a building. But the reason that I felt like it was pertinent to have this discussion about parametric design in LCA was because you can already start to design with that sort of end in mind, right? You can improve the results of your life cycle assessment long before you get to that stage of design if we start using the tools that we'll go through with DPTs. But yeah, thanks for that response, Lila, right? Is that how you pronounce it? Okay, so got a few here that we will. Oh, go ahead. It's okay. Got a few here that we will kind of do a very quick side by side, not necessarily a comparison, but more of a, you know, just a pulse, right? So you've got different tools for different kinds of what I would call lenses, right? Or maybe paradigms is the right word. So tally is great for some things, right? It's great for, you know, macro understanding. Becomes a little bit more difficult to kind of get nuanced, you know, changes and feedback integration and things like that, but still great with data sets and getting a reliable number out. Although in my experience, I've seen it is a little bit more cumbersome, you know, when you want to try to affect some change. You've got other things like EC3, which you can get, you know, more micro in detail, more customization, more accuracy. I'd say like this sort of step that EC3 took to expose this data and to kind of make it public was a step of maturity that I really think the industry valued and is now kind of capitalizing on it. So one of the things we'll have in the first demo that we'll look at is we've already connected with EC3's API and we're able to pull in their environmental product declarations. So we're able to get that data and apply it directly to, you know, our parametric models in real time as well, which is really great. Then you know, you've got your one-click LCA. I've been impressed with, you know, kind of the breadth of data that they have that they're feeding their users. What I haven't really seen quite yet is a, you know, a real like kind of seamless or fluid way of working just yet, or kind of helping people pick and choose a little bit better, a little bit more quicker, you know, and more responsive. And then this last one here, the buildings and habitats object model, because it's a plugin in Rhino and Grasshopper, you can easily kind of connect things like human UI to give yourself, you know, a chart or visualization right out of the box. We won't be talking in depth of just everything you could do with the BOM and visualization. There's many things. But this is just a really quick one because it is open. It freely connects. It's just data, so you can use it with other plugins as well. And we have a number of data sets to give you the ability to choose kind of what level of detail you want to go into. Also, you'll see with the construction of different layered assemblies or different elements, you can choose kind of how you want to do that, which is nice. But I will say, requires then another level of understanding. When do I use this data set, you know, versus another, which you kind of need you needed some assistance on that at times. So what we've done, just share this slide. This was an internal study where we went back in time and evaluated some of our previous projects, just looking at the structural scope of the buildings. So this was a really good, you know, this is using, again, human UI and the BOM LCA toolkit, pulling in from our Revit models and evaluating those designed Revit components. So with this, we're able to study, I think we did about 15 total projects where we went back and analyzed each one of these. And that gave us really good insight moving forward as to some things that we could change in our structural design. We've done the same thing with our mechanical systems we're working on right now. We've done interesting work on refrigerant impact as well. So like understanding even the more nuanced aspects of mechanical systems, which many haven't really broached just yet, even though the topic is so you know, ingrained in us at this point in time. Let's jump into the VM now. I want to get you guys just going and clicking around. I'm just going to pull up my, yeah, so I see we're, okay, so I have to move an hour. move an hour back. So we've got about 45 minutes at this point in time until we get to our break session. So I think that's a fair amount of time to get you guys in this first example file here. So we're gonna go into the VM, and I can see some of you already who have shared your workstations in the conversation. I can see some of you are already clicking around, which is great. So I'll show you where to get this file from. It's already been loaded on your machines. So what I'm going to do now is share my personal workstation, and we'll start it. Okay. So you should be able to see mine here. So let's just go. I'm going to close
Michael,
this.
I'm just going to
I have a
interrupt.
question real quick. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
yeah, we got two. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to just say on a technical side, Michael is sharing his workstation in the conversation where the blue circle is. You can double click to make it larger. So if you want to look at it full screen in this conversation section, but also if you're on Chrome, you'll see that there's a toolbar above his workstation when you move your mouse over it, and there's 3 dots, and you can undock that video of his workstation. So it'll just sit on top of your desktop, and you can kind of resize it however you want, and then go back to your workstation so you can follow along at the same time. All right.
Yeah, thank you. Yep. And we had one more question.
That was
not
it.
Sure who that was.
I couldn't see the conversation and my screen at the same time.
Awesome. Well, yeah, chime in again if you're still having any issues or if there's anything we can help with. But we'll just kind of start a little bit slowly here, just make sure everyone can follow along. We won't be doing anything too complicated just now, but we'll kind of build to that. So jump into your own personal VM and do this with me if you can. So when you click on your file explorer down here at the bottom left, you should just have access to this quick access, I think is where it's going to load you. So let's find our files. So what we're going to do is just click this, move up 1 level here. This is going to send us to our desktop. You should each have a UME participant folder. And then in that, you should have a UME folder here that has a little icon of a shortcut. Click on that. And then inside of this folder here, this is all the content for the Chicago workshop. What I'd recommend doing at this point is just clicking and dragging that to quick access so we don't have to do that again. So raise a hand if you'd like me to do that again, or if you need help finding content. Okay, so I see 2 hands raised. Let's do this over again. So I'm going to, there's another one. So I'm going to unpin this, and we're just going to do this one more time. So you're going to click on File Explorer. Just go up 1 level here using the up arrow. This is just going to take you to the desktop, so you can also just click desktop. You should see UME participant. Double click into that. And we're going to double click into UME, the folder here. That's going to take us to everything that I've preloaded. So I preloaded a zip file of all of our content, our sample files, everything. So that's what this one is, this top folder. You're going to want to double click into that. I see, so Masumi has said, I do not have a UME participant folder. Is that because they signed in as a guest, Daniel? Or is that?
No, everyone.
Oh, me too. I don't have UME file.
No problem. So if you
Yeah,
can,
so I don't have it.
put up your hand and then what that's going to do is it's going to highlight.
A lot of people don't have this file.
Oh, it's not showing up for a lot of people.
I signed in as a guest, and I actually have it, Michael.
You do have it, okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
no problem.
So we've got a few that have it and a few that don't. And
Okay.
Daniel, you were muted. I saw you were speaking, but I didn't hear anything.
Sorry. All right, let me take a look to see why some of them don't have it, and we will get it going for you.
Cool. Yeah, and let's just do one more, like, just make sure on your desktop you should have this. Just for those of you that are saying you don't have UME participant, we'll get that worked out. So just do a double, triple check, make sure that you're not missing that on your desktop itself. There's also
Michael, can you hear me?
I can, yeah, Travis.
I have a U drive, a UME U drive. I guess I could share my screen.
Oh yeah, I do see that too.
And if I go to Studio and then UME 1WELSHWY and then UME again, I think I have the same content here.
Okay. Yeah.
Look at my screen. I don't think I could like copy this in, possibly. Probably not. I don't think it's going to move it to my. Oh, it did. Okay. So that I put into the chat.
Okay. Yeah, and you see the message that Nervik just posted as well. Actually, if you click on the desktop, it won't show. If you open the File Explorer and go up one level, it will show. So I don't know if anyone else tried that. Maybe that could be fixed too.
Yeah, let's try and just go through the U drive on the left.
Go through the U drive. Okay.
Oh, yeah, same deal. That's wild.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, which one was it again? The one that ends. I don't have that. I think that's like a hash or something. Yeah. But I do have it as well.
Okay, so that's the way to do it then, is through the U drive?
Yeah, you can do that. I didn't recognize the same encoded. So I see UME, and then my code is different.
Yeah, everyone will have a different code after the UME, but just drill down into that folder and you'll get to the Chicago workshop.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Mine says you have been disallowed for U drive. So permissions on U drive. Masumi, you can't click into the U drive. It says that you're not allowed to. Is that correct? Found it. Okay. The most recent one here. Okay, so just drill down into that from the U drive. It seems to be the most successful way to do it. But then make sure that whatever you do, just click and drag this to your quick access and pin it. So that way you can just, in one click, get back to the content that we want to focus on. Okay, so let me just pull up my presentation on this side so that I know what I'm doing. Okay, so go ahead and launch Rhino. We're gonna do this. I actually have it open already, but I'm gonna close my scripts that I have so that we can do this all together and face the same issues if we have any. So let's go ahead and open up Rhino. I'm gonna check on everybody to just make sure that everyone's looking good. Just looking at everyone's VMs, seeing content. I see some of you are on Rhino, which is great. Just launching it. I don't see anyone who doesn't have the folder. So if you're still missing content, please give a shout, raise a hand, anything. As far as I can tell, everyone looks good. Awesome. So what we're gonna do before we actually open the first example script that's in that folder, I wanted to just introduce you to the bomb as a tool, as a new tab in your Grasshopper layout. And just before we do that, is there anyone in the room here that this is your very first time using Grasshopper? Do we have any brand new users. You can raise a hand. So I see we've got one new user of Grasshopper. It helps me sort of understand at what level I should be teaching and kind of making connections for you guys. So at any point, I don't know whether to, I don't know, should I call you Maha or Masumi? Either way, I think Maha might be maybe a little easier, but if you need any help at all, since this is your first time, just give me a shout. I can give you some assistance. But what we're going to do is when yours opens, you should just see the basic params tab unfolded here. If you look at the top, you should see the bomb as a tab up at the top. Go ahead and click on that, and that will show you these few drop-down menus, right? So you should see adapter, engine, OM, UI. We won't be touching anything in the UI, so you can kind of ignore that last one. We'll be focusing on these three. And just now, I would love to just have you guys click into, let's go and make a new object together. So I'm going to drop this OM down and click on create an object. So everybody go ahead and do that. Okay, see a couple. Lila, I see that you are not in Grasshopper yet, which is a very important step that I may have forgotten to say, how to launch Grasshopper if you've never used it before. So I apologize. You can type in the command prompt, or you can click the little green button here. Little green button in the top. So we've got, see Travis, you're still loading. Rhino, but I trust you, so you're good. Okay, and I also see, interesting. So Moon Young, you have Grasshopper set to display icons instead of words. So it's up to you, however you want to do it. I'm going to start with words just because I also see Young-san, yours is also displaying icons. If you'd like that, if you prefer that, by all means, your choice. I'm going to go with words because that's a little bit easier for new users as well. So you've just created your new object. For those of you that are still just catching up, just drop down this OM button and you'll see create object right here. And just click that, create a new object. So what I'm about to show you is a couple of ways to access what's inside of the bomb, right? We're going to access different objects. We're going to access different methods. There's a number of ways to gain access to these things and use them in your scripts. This, as it currently sits with the little jagged edges, is not useful for anything. It doesn't plug in anything, has no inputs, no outputs. It's just a dummy placeholder object. So I already see a few of you have decided to right click this, which is what we're going to do. So go ahead and right click where it says custom object. And you'll see in the middle there, select an item. This is where our UI, we're in conversations right now of looking at our UI very critically. But currently you kind of you have a couple of options, right? You can right click and select an item manually by kind of hovering over and going to the proper place that you're looking for. And it will kind of give you a number of breakout menu items to go and select. This is not ideal, obviously, because it's a bit tricky to find the right thing. How do you know, where to go? I will also provide you links to the documentation of the bomb so that you can kind of peruse it and see the methods. And I'll give you a link to the API as well, so you can take a look at those methods. But you can see like there's a ton of stuff in here. So just go ahead and right click and just select anything, like anything that caught your attention, right? You'll see that fold out menu and then do another one. And then just, once you finally end up on an object, confirm it by clicking it. And then you'll see that your jagged edged object has transformed into something else. So I see Maha, you're good to go. So you've created a curtain wall. We've got Young Wan has created an extrusion. We've got Young Sun who's created, I don't know what that is. Let's see, additional notes by June card. Yeah, if you hover over that icon right there, I can see it. Oh, LCA scope. Great. Got electrical equipment. So this is how you would create a new object. We're going to do a little bit of this, but we're not going to really do it this way where we right click and select. There's a number of other ways. There's a shortcut that you can use. It's a keyboard shortcut, and I'll just write it here so everyone can have it. It's Control Shift B as in boy. Let's go. Right, have that. Cool. I think I need to be zoomed in a little so I can see.
I see a couple of people are asking about seeing both Michael's screen and their own screen. So go back to the conversation. So that's the 3 people at the top of the screen. If you move your mouse over Michael's window where he's sharing his workstation, there's 3 dots, and that's where you want to do undock. I believe it only works on Chrome and Edge, so if you're in on another browser, that's not going to work. It's not supported.
Okay. Yeah, we all sorted. I think that is a really helpful view to be able to see me on one side of the screen and let you have the full real estate to explore. So I've just made a little scribble here. This is the keyboard shortcut that you'll see me use the most often. So if you see, so in Grasshopper, if you double click the canvas, you get this search for a keyword. So you can type anything you want. That's a Grasshopper method. So if I want to make a box, for example, I just type box, right? We've done the same thing for our BOM methods, but you can't access them all through the Grasshopper keyword search. So for that reason, we have created a Control-Shift-B shortcut. So now with the object that you've just created, try and find it using the Control-Shift-B method. So for me, since I made a building benchmark data object, I'm just going to type building benchmark, and then I come up with a few options that I can kind of click through, right? And you'll notice that a few of them, you might have some that have different icons in front of them. Those icons correspond to where they sit within the BOM. So they're either an adapter, or they're an engine, or they're an OM. So just to get acquainted, we tried to color code them so that if there's blue, that's kind of in the engine wheelhouse. If it's orange, that's in your OM wheelhouse, and green in the adapter. So go ahead and just confirm, and just like that, we've created the same thing without the hassle of, click, 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 navigate through menus and things like that. And there is also a search function here as well when you right click, so you can do the same thing. Just Control-Shift-B might be a little bit easier for you to use. Let me pop out and see, make sure everyone's kind of on the same page and has tried it. Okay, so I see a few of you have, yeah, a few of you are flying through. This is great. I see a bunch of different objects. Keith, I see that your VM is being processed, being created. So yeah, I'm not sure at what point that was started for you, but let us know if that doesn't get up and running. Okay, so anyone have any difficulty? Go ahead and shout. Otherwise, we're just gonna keep plugging along here. Okay, so that introduces you to Control-Shift-B. The basic kind of way of working in the BOM, as I've gone over in the beginning. Okay, understood, Keith. Yeah, feel free to shout if you have any questions anytime as well. So the way that I introduced the BOM before is it's an interoperability solution, right? So the adapter here is the first drop down that you'll encounter in the ribbon. And here is where you get functionality like pushing and pulling. When we say pushing and pulling, we're talking about data, right? Push your data to another software or pull data from another software. To do that, so you can, let's say I want to pull, I can just create a pull here. And why don't we all do this together as well? So go ahead and create a pull. We're just going to kind of mock one up together. In the example that we're going to jump into in a minute, there's one already started for you that's using EC3, but I just want to get you familiar with what's going on. So the pull here is asking for a few inputs. There is another method of searching the BOM and getting the things you need, because sometimes it's still a little bit of a hassle to Control-Shift-B and then type, adapter, Revit, or what other adapter you want. Maybe you get more familiar with this. There's actually other things you could do. We've integrated IntelliSense into Grasshopper as well, so you can just simply pull on a dial right here, and that will give a drop down of everything that could facilitate an input to that. So I think a few of you I've seen already kind of doing this. Maybe the first time I experienced it, I thought it was a mistake. It's a little flashes sometimes, but you do that, and then you can just simply type something like, we'll do Revit. It's a good example, and it will populate and automatically connect for you. And then you can do that with all of our inputs as well. So like Revit settings, that'll auto-populate with Revit settings, the request type, the pull type, all of those good things can just be kind of quickly accessed using that. And then a toggle for the active components, which you can kind of plug in, right? So if those are set to true, it would look for an instance of Revit that's open. We don't have one open right now, which is fine. Just showing you this is how you would start that connectivity. We will likely not have enough time to connect with Revit and pull Revit objects. If we do at the end of the class, happy to do this with you guys. But we're also, like, anytime after this workshop, feel free to reach out via email, send me a message, and we can set up another session to kind of help you through any kind of Revit workflows as well. Let me just pop out and see, were you guys able to follow along? Let's see, gotta update mine. Okay, yes, I see a few of you have polls set up. Very nice. Some of you still working on one. Yes, awesome. Okay, so I jump back into mine here, and we're going to, well, first off, anyone have any burning questions before we jump into the first Grasshopper example? This was just to kind of get you to use the BOM for the first, for a few minutes. It's there's a lot of handy utilities as well. I frequently use the to and from JSON format here as well. If I'm going to send things to like observable or format it for a specific kind of visualization or something like that, it's a pretty easy process. And the last thing I'll show you here are just kind of pertaining to the OM. So there's a few things here. We've already looked at creating an object. I want to call your attention to creating a data. So create data, what is that? So click that, you get a new little container here that looks like a, just an empty thing. So if I click that, nothing happens. If you right click it, you have access to selecting an item. So again, it's just the same interface here. You just right click, select an item. I'm going to go to LCA here, so lifecycle assessment. Now this is going to show me everything associated with lifecycle assessment. So now this is where we have stored and shared some of the data sets that we've come across and we've taken time to internalize and provide to our code base. So everyone who uses the installer has access to these data sets. And these data sets are typically open source data sets, or they're ones that, you know, we could access their data for free, and we could freely share them. So feel free to click around and explore, you know, this is sort of the breadth of the data that we have available currently. It's pretty trivial to add a new data set. And why I hover over EC3 here is to show you that we actually went through EC3 and pulled, you know, several hundred environmental product declarations and made our own data sets for our company, so that we can, you know, recommend our structural engineers, for example, concrete. You know, they wanted to use light concrete or normal concrete or different strengths, so they were able to pull those together. So if I just click on, let me just click on steel, for example, you'll get this populated data set, and you'll get this drop down. So this is an enum. So you get, you know, you can choose one of these things in this list, and as you change that, your label will change. And let me check and make sure everyone's has created a data set first. So if you're following along here, so I see, yep, we've got Nervix creating a data set. We've got Maha's got one. Young one, you've got one. See JD working on it over there. The can't tell because it's behind that menu. But if you click away, let's just get out of this menu here, and then right click this guy, just right there on the thing, and then add an item. Hover over that. Down one. Yeah, select an item, and then LCA, and then any of these you can kind of get into over here. Yeah, so life cycle assessment, and then all of these over here are kind of nested. They're nested by data source, basically. So if you hover over, yeah, any of those, yeah, and I see a few of you have noticed, like our kind of navigator menus are not that great to work with, if I'm honest, but that's why I recommend the Control-Shift-B. But kind of want to show you the more painful way to do it, if you will, and then you can Control-Shift-B and search data sets quite easily. So if I Control-Shift-B and then just type, I don't know why it's populated over there. Let's go. I type EC3, for example, that will automatically pull up all of my data sets associated with EC3. Maybe there's another one like Overket, got one. So that's a quick way to get a data set on your screen or on your canvas. But you kind of have to know the name of it. So wanted to show you how to access that. Okay, so let me do one more pass through. It looks like everyone has a data set on their screen. I see, let's see. Yeah, good. Everyone has one. Awesome. So this next step is going to be very, very important for your journey using the BOM. So I'd like you all to try this with me. And I don't know who came up with the names. You know, BOM, and then this next method we're going to use is called explode. So you know, maybe it's an unfortunate name, but we're going to use that explode component. And where I got this from is it's an engine method here, explode. So you can click on this. Equally, you can double click the canvas and type explode. Since this is a top level, it's exposed at the top level of the UI. You can access it in Grasshopper. So you can double click the canvas and do that. You can also Control-Shift-B and type explode, and it will show up here as well. However you want to find it. And what we're going to do is just connect this data set to this explode. We're going to see what happens. Okay, just going to pop out of my view and see, did everyone connect and explode? Yes, and some of you have already started connecting panels. This is the fun part, right? This is where the data, you can now do whatever you want, right? You have autonomy with the data set. You can see everything about this particular entry in this data set, right? So And the nice thing, so if I follow the example of some of our other workshop members who are plugging in panels, right? This panel will expose the data that we're actually looking at. So I can see that environmental metrics, for example, just consists of more BOM objects. So we've got an LCA, material fragment, climate change total, no biogenic metric. And then we've got another one that's climate change biogenic metric, and then another one, climate change total metric. Yours is going to have a different, array of metrics. But what we want to do is let's just use a list item. So this is just a grasshopper method. I'm going to plug in that environmental metric into the list item. So this is just going to pull that first one out for me. So I don't want to look at 3 at once. I just want to look at one thing. You could choose whichever one if you've got multiple. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to copy this explode over by clicking and dragging and pressing Alt to make a quick copy, or you can Control C and Control V. And then I'm going to plug that in to that explode. Now this one changed, right? Because now we're exploding kind of another layer down in this object. Now this object has a whole bunch of different properties in it. And this is where, when we're talking about LCA, what we're exploring with this data set, this is a data set of environmental product declarations. In the BOM, we have created a definition. So a definition consists of properties and what that property is, what type of data it is. This data set consists of EPDs. Each EPD has a property or has a name for each of its phases of life. Now, you can go ahead and put a panel out and start plugging in and seeing if there's any data in any of these. Most likely for most of our nested data sets that we've already compiled, you're only going to see values in the A1 to A3 range. So that's where they've a lot of EPDs report on this concatenated value. But there are some data sources that don't. So we want to allow for that flexibility. If you have data sources that have all of the phases of life individually recognized, you can do that. So this is where you can kind of drill down and see the values inside of each one of these data set entries. And if I go back and change, let's say I want to change which data set I'm looking at to concrete, I can see that number has also changed as well. There are some other important properties of the EPD itself. So let me just plug in the data set to show you what we've been looking at this whole time is actually an EPD object. So I'll just circle that just to show you that that's what that data set consists of. There's some other important properties that we get out of our explode, like the type, sector-based EPD rather than a product-based EPD. Some EPDs you want just a nuanced byproduct, so you can change that type. There's also what's called a quantity type. This quantity type is important because it tells the engine that we'll use in the next script. It tells the engine how to calculate the embodied carbon or any other environmental metric that you have. If it's mass-based, or if it's area-based, or if it's by quantity of something. So that quantity type is also very important. Great. Let me pop out here, and I'll give you guys a minute to ask any questions that you've been hit with. Anything confusing? Anyone have any burning questions right now before we jump into this first example? I see everyone's got an explode and some panels, which is great to see. Cool. Looking good. All right. So now what we're going to do, let's go ahead and you can keep the script if you'd like, refer back to it. We're going to now use one of our preloaded scripts. So if you go back to your file explorer, and we're going to click this _, environmental product declarations script. And I'm just going to click and drag this onto my canvas, and you'll see that there's this little fold down at the top of Grasshopper. This gives you, if you hover over this, it'll give you different options of how to import this. I recommend just leaving it default. Let's just open the whole file, so we're not kind of fussing with an external file of any type. So you just click and drag and release. This will then open the EPD file. And I think for some reason it's saved with the canvas location way off to the left. So just zoom out and pan over. I'm gonna just take a quick peek at everyone to make sure that that script is opening. Okay, and there's not any glaring errors. Yeah, it looks like everyone's got that. Just get down to the bottom here. Okay, everyone's on the same page. Awesome. Okay, so this script, you'll want to keep this in your kind of quick access moving forward. And this is one that we update and share with our samples that are open source. But this will just give you a very, very quick walkthrough of how to create your own EPDs. Because as I mentioned before, all of our data sets that we will use in the LCA toolkit comprise of EPD objects. You can actually construct your own EPD objects. And that's how we made all of those data sets. I went through and wrote a Grasshopper script that pulled in data from a source. You know, it could be an Excel sheet, it could be an API, whatever. And I just used these constructors to create my data sets. So at the end here, let's just put down a panel real quick at the end of this first, this very first grouped panel here. But you can see that I'm creating an LCA object that is an EPD. And to get this, you can Control-Shift-B and just type environmental product. And it should come up. It's this one here that's like the magic wand. Again, that's in our OM if it's got some orange in it. And you should also see that there's some indicators to the right of the method. These are just saying what is the input required for this object. So I can see this one takes an EPD type, and that's going to be the name of that input is going to be type, and it's also going to take 3 more inputs, and that's the thing that I want. And once I confirm that, I can see side by side it's the exact same thing. So, but this is why I say, keep this in your back pocket. You can just copy paste the objects and get started straight away. We'll work backwards here for just a minute. So if I want to do this from scratch, I'm just going to go to an empty place on my canvas here, and we can construct one of these together. So I'm just going to do that one more time. Environmental product, and confirm, create that object. Now I'm going to use the IntelliSense to kind of work backwards and construct my object with the data that I want, right? So I'm going to start at the top and just pull this type back, click the first one. That's going to give me my EPD type. I'm going to select, this is going to be a product-based EPD. My next input option here is environmental metric. I'm going to click and drag, and there's going to be just a whole mess of options that you can choose from. This is where I would get familiar with the type of metric that you're wanting to work with and identify. You can add all of these if you want, but not many EPDs actually have data for every single environmental metric that we provide objects for. We hope one day that's kind of the standard, but until that's the case, a lot of these will just kind of remain unused. So you can plug in any metric that you want. I think the one that most people are most interested in is one that we're now calling climate change. So there's a number of these. So there's total metric, there's a non-biogenic, fossil metric, biogenic. So this is where you kind of need a little bit more nuanced understanding of the exact metric that you're looking for. For our case, I'm just going to use a total, the climate change total metric. It's just sort of this one. It's going to encapsulate everything having to do with embodied carbon. And for those of you that are kind of units minded, the BOM is always in SI as a standard. So you can expect the outcome of this to be in kg CO2 equivalent. So when you're working with this, and obviously that will be impacted based on your modeling units in your Rhino file as well. So if you're working in millimeters, and you're performing this, but your model it's not actually like a one-to-one model, then your results will not be accurate. You'll need to actually make your model, the one-to-one size. You don't need to be, or you'll have to scale up your results. And if that doesn't make sense, like, feel free to ask me, afterwards, or if you want to apply this on a project anytime in your own practice, I can help you with that later. But let's go ahead and make a climate change total metric. And you can see here, there's a couple of options here. There's 3 total. So I could have, A1, 2, and 3 broken out. There's also one that's just A1 to A3, just kind of the more, cumulative one. So I'm just going to do that one, confirm that. So I've now created an EPD with a metric that has no values. So this is where, if I were plugging in, let's see, data from an API, I could do that. If I plug in data from a spreadsheet, you could do that, right? And that would you would just pull that from your API, whatever you're working with, and plug those values into your object. And in this way, this becomes a way to dynamically create new EPDs that we're not already giving you. You're free to create your own. So with this, I'm just gonna go ahead and just populate this with some dummy data. So I'm just gonna make a slider with some values and just plug that in. A couple of these. This is just obviously a proxy for whatever data source you would be pulling from, right? You could just connect those wires right to that metric. And then supply a quantity type. It's going to default to undefined here. It's important to just go ahead and give it a quantity type of whatever your EPD suggests. That's typically identified in your EPD. So I'm going to say mass. That's the most common that I've seen. And then you can give it a name, test EPD. And we have just created an EPD object. So we're building to something, right? We've now learned how to use the BOM, what it looks like, how to interface with it. We've learned a little bit about what an object is, how to create objects, why objects are fundamentally important. That's why we start here. All of our workflows that we'll go through in our next sequence of events are going to be relying on these objects to imbue our Rhino models and our, even our schematic design models with more intelligence, so that I can run an evaluation on the fly. So that means I can have sliders connected to my model. I can change the width, the height, the floors, anything, the windows, the materiality, and my number will update automatically. So that's where we're going to get to. We've got just another minute before we take a little break for about 10 or 15 minutes. So I'll pause here and let's answer any questions from that last walkthrough that you might have. So you can feel free to unmute yourself, ask away, or you can raise a hand, whatever you're comfortable with. Just checking everyone's going good here. So I hear someone's unmuted.
So I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So for the inputs, for example, for this environmental product component,
Yep.
When I wanted to choose an input for it, there are a lot of options there. As I'm new for LCA and things, I'm wondering when I'm more familiar with it, I can choose clearly which one of them I should, or because it's kind of confusing for me. There are a lot of options and I don't know what is what.
And I fully understand. I think I recommend just starting out with the climate change metrics for now, because the other the other metrics are infrequently reported. A lot of standards are requiring at a minimum the embodied carbon number, which is what we're calling climate change. So that's where I would start, because that's always going to be relevant. Like your acidification potential or ozone depletion potential, those are nice to haves if your data source has that information. Not guaranteed it's going to have. So I would recommend just sticking to climate change metrics.
Thank you.
Yep. And Daniel, I wasn't sure. It's hard for me to tell who's speaking. So I wasn't sure which computer that was, so I could kind of hop in and help.
Yeah, we could get better at that.
Okay, I'm not sure if there was something that I see sometimes, like there's a little icon that pops up.
There
like
is, but at the very top of the screen next to the chat, you'll see whoever is what they consider the dominant speaker. So
that's right.
You'll see their name, but it doesn't show you. It's not a good link back to their screen. So I'll make a note of that.
I'll look to there. So whoever asked that question just now, I apologize. If you don't mind, unmute yourself. Just let me know who that was so that I can check in on you.
It was me.
Okay, Ma, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let me just go to your screen here. Yeah, so you've got the climate change total metric here. That's the one that I'd recommend just sticking to for now. This is the one that's guaranteed across the board. Gonna have some information on it. I see you have your EPD type undefined. That's fine as well. But I've typically seen either one or the other. If it's product based, like you'll see this with manufacturers of like carpet tile, for example, right? They'll do an EPD for that specific product. But then there are other reports of maybe that manufacturer did one for just carpet made this way, right? And that's what we would call a sector EPD. So that then speaks for the entire, breadth of their products. So that's the distinction there. Yeah, great question. Does anyone else have any questions? I think we're at time to have a little break. Let's have a quick recap. So we talked about objects, we talked about data sets, we got you in and using the bomb, searching things and experimenting, and you've seen how to access and search for things, which is kind of one of the hardest things when using any new tool, is just where do you find the right thing that you need. So you should have at least some answers to those to get you started. We left off, we've built our first environmental product declaration object from scratch. And again, that's just like a proxy object for what you would use if you were pulling something, let's say from an external data source, for example, if you're using an adapter, or if you were pulling from a GET request or something like that from an API. That's what you'd be doing. You'd be converting into an EPD. That EPD is the vehicle by which we're going to be evaluating our parametric models. So it's fundamental to understand these objects. We've gone into kind of the substructures that make up the EPD. So an object can have other objects as an input. So that's what we see with the metrics. So those metrics are, yet again, another object that plugs in for one of the environmental metrics. What I didn't show you is that you could have, lots and lots of different metrics. You could have a lot of them just kind of plugging into a merge component. So you could have one EPD that has, every metric on planet Earth if you wanted, and you could use that and attach it to your objects. So fundamentally, we understand how to build them, but do we yet understand kind of why they're here, and why it's important to have this understanding? I feel like a lot of solutions that are out there don't quite have that focus on what data you're using up front. The focus is instead on the user experience. So, is it easy to click through and get a number, right? That's kind of the success metric. How many clicks do I need? There's one even entitled One Click, which claims to have the fastest way to get to a result, which is not a bad thing, not at all. Not saying that as a bad thing. It's just there's then what happens when you pull the curtain back? What's the fidelity of the result? So that's why we start with this as a foundational thing, is understanding that your EPDs are important and where you source them from, how accurate they are. Yes, Moon Young, I am presenting a couple of slides really quick, and then we'll jump back into Grasshopper. So the Grasshopper screen doesn't have any activity. Yeah, so I think I stopped sharing my VM just to. No, it's still there. It's still there. I just unstarted. But you should see kind of larger highlighted my slides, and then we'll jump back into Grasshopper.
For some reason, I think I can see only the cover page. Is it normal, or am I doing something wrong?
Of the presentation, you can only see the cover page.
Now it's changed, like EPD.
So I just flipped through. So I just kind of went one forward and one back, and I think it refreshed maybe. So.
Right.
Yeah. So we're just looking at the BOM EPD here. So. When we go into this next section, we'll be understanding, what does it look like when you apply these things to real models? What are you actually trying to get out of it? But let's quickly ask a question to you guys again, now that we're back and we're getting into things again. We've talked a lot about data sets. Some of you use Tally, some of you use OneClick, some of you use other solutions. Is this something that you've considered in the past, and why? What data sets are you actually using when you're performing an evaluation, or do you even know? That's also a valid answer, and one that I think I've heard quite a bit as well. So I'll just give a minute. Does anyone want to comment on this? What data sets do you use in your own LCA work? I've seen things like Tally, right, that is accessing a Gabby database in the back end, that you're not really seeing how the conversions are working or where the numbers are coming from. It's that level is sort of obfuscated from us, the end user, to make life a little easier. So the point I'm trying to make here is, oh yeah, and it looks like it goes back to that. The point I'm trying to make here is that, yes, this might be a little more granular, like constructing objects and supplying data and creating EPDs might be a little nuanced and a little more granular than you might be used to, but that's okay. What you'll see in some of our workflows is doesn't actually have to be as involved as always creating your own objects. You could certainly do that. But there are ways to make this a lot easier, a lot more streamlined as well, but just giving you that fundamental understanding. So yeah, if you're thinking about this moving forward, and something pops in your mind, oh, that's a data set that I've used, shout it out, put it in the chat. I think it would be beneficial to share some of these data sources that you might be using as well. And that's also okay if you're just not to that point in your journey with doing these just yet. You might not know about them, but hopefully with this presentation we can expose some of them to you. Okay, so we've just had our little break. We're now going to go into the section where we talk about workflows and getting to the core functionality of the LCA toolkit. This is our slide that we show like some of our data sets that we have internalized. We've experienced kind of searching through the BOM objects of data sets just to see what's there. So now let's actually hop back in really quickly to our personal workstations here, our virtual workstations. And let's look at that example script. So I'm going to now go back to the conversation, and I'm going to star my screen so you can see it a little bit more clearly. Here we go. Okay, and then I'll hop back into mine. So if we zoom out a little bit, so we've been kind of focused on a blank area of the canvas, making an object. But we zoom out a bit, there's quite a bit going on in this script. Each one of these groups has something that we're going to kind of work through together and understand. But I'll call your attention to this really long column looking group here. This is actually we do a testing every quarter when we produce a new beta that goes out publicly, and we want to test that our data sets are still functional and that they're updating correctly and all of that. So this is basically, we've gone through and just listed our data sets. So you can go through and kind of just scroll through, and you can see got them grouped by name here. The Epic database. There's some that we provide for European offices that are designing facades. These are some common things that they would use. In the US, the ICE, which is a database coming out of the Bath University. In the UK, so we've internalized their entire data set here. MEP, we have, there's one that's been created also in-house, MEP EPDs. National Highways was added because we have some that are focused on infrastructure, city planning, things like that. Okabaudat's a German database, and Quartz. Quartz is down here by itself on the bottom because it's old and it's out of date, but we still offer it. It's a good point of contact. It's a good first starter data set. And you can see, like anything that we've already done, you can just attach and explode to it, and you can explore the data that's inside of them. There are also other ways that you can query an entire data set all at once, rather than going line by line in an enum fashion, like we're doing here. We won't really get into that in this workshop, but again, write your question down, send it to me after, shoot an email over to me and we can talk. But there are ways of using multiple entries in a data set. For our purposes, we'll be kind of just using one at a time, just to drive the point home. So we've already talked about exploded EPD. What I wanted to then move kind of up from all of our data sets was to show you that more and more we actually want to rely on a live link so that we can have the most fresh data possible. So far, what we've done in the EPD space is connecting to EC3 because they have an API that you can access for free. So this section of the script here, I'll just zoom out. So it says pulling EPDs live from Carbon Query database. That's their backend, Carbon Query database, and then everyone knows them by EC3. So this is an adapter. So we've already looked at a pull functionality and setting up an adapter a little bit. We just made kind of a fake one to get you familiar with it. But this is one that's actually working, and it's going to connect to the Carbon Query database. So I've gone ahead and just given a dummy API token that you can obviously use, but encourage you to go and create your own account in EC3 if you'd like to use this. This is also available, all of you have this now. You can copy paste the script into your own workflow, use your own API token, and pull EPDs from EC3 on the fly. So this is a very easy setup using a pull. Use the Carbon Query database adapter, and then here this is just using a type. So this is a container that has all of the properties of this particular object. So I'm just going to use that as my request. And then I'm going to configure my pull here. So you see I have a couple of things down here that are options for you to explore. So you can pull an ID from a specific EPD. So if you click in the website, you can actually pull that particular one that you found. Because sometimes searching by name and count and things like that is nice, but you might not get the right one that you're looking for. You can set the number of EPDs you want to pull. You can set the name so we can change this to maybe concrete. And we'll pull 3 of those. And that'll just take a second to make that pull. You can see we also reflect the same kind of warning signals and things like that in Grasshopper UI as well. But this is just going to tell us that I don't yet have a conversion for a particular kind of data that's being pulled through. So it's just going to store it. Somewhere else. But if I then take that and explode that pull, I'm getting, let's just put a panel on here. I'm going to get 3 EPDs because I've pulled 3. let's say I want to adjust that number to 10. That's going to take, a second or two longer. That's going to then pull 10 of the first EPDs with a name like concrete. So it has concrete in anything with the name. So this is how you can pull directly from EC3's database of EPDs. So now we're going to take a step back and go back over to the PowerPoint for just a minute. We're going to look at some more examples of things in use, and we're going to define a workflow together, and we'll jump into our next sample. But feel free to, click around. You can see some other objects and some other things that we encourage you to experiment with in your own workflow. But we've covered kind of the breadth of this, the purpose of this particular script at this point. So if you have any questions about what we've just gone over, anything having to do with EC3 or just data sets in general, go ahead and chime in, unmute yourself and give us a shout. But otherwise, the only other thing that we haven't covered in this is anything that's additional data. You can store things like the lifespan of the material, or where it is, where it's located, or where it's relevant to, the year it was published. So things like that you can store. Okay, so I'm going to hop back over and start the presentation. Okay, so then let's jump in here. So we've talked about the data sets. You'll also notice in this slide that I have it represented in two of our UIs. So you can see it in Excel down on the bottom right. Again, Control-Shift-B works in Excel as well. We're not going to play with Excel today. I didn't want to have that loaded on or get into that today because we're going to be focused more on Rhino and Grasshopper. But like I said before, I do actually have a sample for you anyway in the course content that has this already set up, so you can go and experiment with that as well. And then this is that method that I talked about earlier, that you can pull an entire database all at once, or data set all at once, querying the library itself. So we talked a little bit about this at the beginning when we started talking about data sets, but what we've also noticed is as your project continues in maturity along its project timeline, let's say it goes from schematic design to all the way through construction documents, or even construction administration, it becomes harder and harder to make changes, right? It becomes more expensive and more time consuming to change a material. But what we've noticed is a lot of databases or data sets and tools apply the same data to any kind of age of a project, right? So you could be applying extremely nuanced EPDs to a very early stage, or vice versa, extremely vague EPDs to something that needs nuance, right? So what we want to make is this, abundantly clear that you have the choice to use whatever data set you want. You can make your own. You could use one of ours. But they might cover different phases of life. They might cover different scopes. So it's important to still go back in and read them. Generally, like when we're looking, so now we're going to lay the foundation for when we go and actually run some calculations on a model. This is the general kind of what's happening behind the scenes, right? So you're getting some model data from Revit or Rhino. The LCA toolkit is going to perform the following few things. It's going to evaluate things. First off, it's going to try to understand the volume of the things that you're providing. It's going to try to understand then how to evaluate them based on the EPDs you've selected. It's going to provide the links or connections to data sources we've talked about at length. And then it's going to calculate what I put here is GWP, but embodied carbon, there's lots of names for it now, climate change metric, typically in kgCO2 or equivalent, but you can also calculate other metrics as well, depending on what you choose. And then, using the BOM or using, anything that, depending on where you're trying to send data or trying to visualize data, you can use those results and capture those numbers. You can make visualizations outside of it. Here, this is just a very simple human. So in Rhino, or in Grasshopper, there's another plugin called Human UI. This is just reading the results and creating a pie chart, it's saying what element in the building has the greatest impact. So it becomes very easy to do those kinds of things. Then what we like to do is kind of, set out with our disciplines and understand like what does the overall workflow look like. Let's design that workflow together. So this is one that has come from an MEP, from an MEP perspective. They have their BIM model. They're working with, that's when they typically go into design real systems. They have a number of objects, ducts, pipes, windows, all of those kinds of things. Then they use a material template. So I'm going to show you a little bit of that in the next script to then automatically map and understand the impacts of every object that they're using. So that's just our overall kind of typical workflow map. I wanted to then pause here and just ask the room again, what workflows are you currently like designing, and what workflows do you need to facilitate to understand, an ESG related metric like LCA? Because I respect we're not all kind of approaching it from the same lens. So I'm curious to hear from you what you're trying to understand or what you're trying to make. Yeah, so anyone care to chime in on what workflows you're needing to facilitate? I think one of you earlier has said, and apologies, forget the name, but has said, you're interested in kind of early stage assessments. I'm curious, if you are working in early stage assessments, are you working with something like a massing, or are you working with even just like lines on a page, right? What kinds of things are you trying to understand? Because it's really from this point of view that you want to approach the next step, right? We want to know kind of where you're going before you kind of just, make a bunch of materials and things like that. Some of you may be interested in more finishes. So, what's the grade of my paint that I'm going to be applying? What's the health impacts of that? Some of you may be interested in, the manufacturing side of things. So before it even reaches the gate of the project, just keep that in mind. There's ways to facilitate all of these kinds of workflows. You just have to get more or less creative with how you're approaching it and what data you're using. So we'll move forward. I don't see any hands coming up. So we'll jump into our next example here, and we'll look at a real workflow. And some preliminary visualization steps that we can take. So let's all together, so I'm going to unstar the presentation. I'm going to go back into my workstation, and you can follow along with me as we open up the next script. There's going to be a few tweaks that you're going to need to make because, again, like I moved this content from my physical machine to my virtual machine, so we need to update some paths and things like that to get things working. So follow along with me. If you will, let me star my workstation real quick. There we go. Okay. So let's go ahead and together, let's navigate to our Chicago workshop folder. We're going to be opening this script number 2. But let's also, because what I did in that is I created some curves, I created some things to read into our Grasshopper script. So that's why I supplied this very, very simple parametric model file. So just click and drag that into your Rhino screen and click open. And it's asking me if I want to read only. That's fine. We're not gonna really do a whole lot inside of it. And you can always save as, but all that's in here are 3 layers, and you can even turn them on if you'd like. So I have a couple of grids, and then if I turn the grids off, I've outlined like where I want to put my circulation core for the building. So I'm just gonna leave those on. And now that I have that file open, I'm going to click and drag and open parametric LCA. This second script here. That's going to take a minute to open. It's running a few calculations. But you should be greeted with a script that looks like this. Let me just quickly look at everyone's screen to make sure you're following along. I see Lila's VM is restarting and Yabin is also being created. Yeah, and I see for the most part, everyone's on the same page here. Let's see. Yeah, I see some of you have spotted the giant red glaring component on the screen. So have a look around. It might look like, you know, a lot's going on with the wires and things like that, and the red is kind of like, oh, I'm not working, right? We're gonna solve that quickly. And then a few of you are noticing some of these things over here to the left, right? These are just some boilerplate things that we set up internally. So this was a script that I built off of a different installer, but this is just some data that we capture when our internal team uses the bomb. So we're going to focus. You can see I've listed here. We're just going to kind of pan around together. Let me just enlarge this on my screen here. We're going to pan around together and see what the script has inside of it. So try to follow along with me. And for those of you with VMs just getting started, just focus on what I'm going through here, and we won't move on too far. It won't be too hard for you to catch up when your VM's back online. But there's effectively two methods here that I wanted to make explicit in this workflow. There's method number one, where you assign an EPD to your object, and then that object is then calculated, right? That act of assigning a material or an EPD is, to be kind of transparent, it's a bit annoying, right? It's, no one really wants to go through and go, you know, oh, I have 5,000 columns in my building, but they're all like, you know, some of them are this material, some of them are that material, and go through and assign every single thing. There are ways to not, you know, obviously to avoid doing that. But I wanted to show you this first method, because this is how you get like extremely granular control over what you're doing, is that you can simply just override a material, right? So that's the first method here. So we're going to assign materials. Second method, if we go down, there is another method. You can use what's called a material template to automatically assign EPDs to your BOM objects. This method is a little bit more user-friendly in a couple of ways. We won't, excuse me, let me just get some water. We won't be going into the actual Excel spreadsheet that has a template so you can kind of push your own. We're just going to be using a template that I've prepared for you. But I do encourage you to open up that, and I'll show you where it is and all of that. I'll encourage you to open that up when you go back to do this on your own projects, or you know, if you want to do this exercise again, you can. It's actually quite simple to say, if my material is this, then map it to that. So in that way, you can really get by with a minimum number of EPDs and still map all of your objects. So we'll be exploring method number two as well together. So some of you have already panned over to the far right. So let's go ahead and do that together if you haven't. You'll see here that we have a big giant red, you know, this isn't working, right? It's saying, oh, can't find this, can't find that. And that's because if we look at our inputs, we're not receiving a material template. That data coming out of that is empty. That's why we get an orange line. So if we follow this material template, that's coming from a pull that we have set up. And this is not working because our directory is incorrect, right? So you guys don't have this directory. I don't have this directory because this came from my physical machine where I was preparing this content. So let's go ahead and update this with the actual file So if we pull open this Windows is File Explorer, all I need to do is just click the file path. I'm going to copy the file path and paste it in here, right? And that line has now just fixed itself, right? So now we're actually getting an output here. Just copy the whole file path. You can click into the top here and Control C that, click into the top here, copy that file path, and then adjust that panel. And you shouldn't see any red. So your file path's right here up at the top. Just click, yep, copy that. Let's see, anyone else? Okay, still see a few VMs still being created. So I'm not sure what the holdup is there, but your file path is right here. Just copy that, click into there, and Control C that. Yep. Okay, great. So now we have, this is our material template. We'll get into this a little bit later, but just wanted to, usually when I see red on the canvas, it kind of bugs me until I figure it out. So I didn't want you guys focusing on that for too long. Maha, it looks like yours is still not liking that file path. Not sure. It might be something to do with no, it's not the U drive that's working. Just check that file path one more time and see if we can, oh, that is working actually. Okay. Yeah, we'll take a look at it when we get to that section. Oh, it might be because did you open the sample file that I sent as well, the Rhino file? So let me just quickly take control of yours.
Mine wasn't working either, but if you go to the UME folder and copy from there instead of the one that was that we got you by going up on quick access, that worked instead. Like it wants you to pull straight from the UME drive folder.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't like a few file paths.
I wonder if something about that quick access link in the Windows way of shortcuts might be the problem, and it's just always safer to go directly from the U drive.
Yeah, so let's do that. Try going directly from that U drive and see if that works. If it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. Yeah, so this Nervik, it's just still showing that it's not pulling any data from here because it's still orange. So it's that file path is still not correct. Oh, take material templates out of the file path. You don't need that. Yeah, just end it with that. There you go. There you go. That worked. Okay. Well, kind of. Yeah, we'll get to the issues there. Let's start by looking at this first example method here, because if we can get through this, then the file path issues and things like that, you can very quickly download this file, use it on your own machine, update the paths. It should all work nicely for you. But let's kind of step through this, right? So I'm going to move my Grasshopper window to one side. Let's see if I can. Nope, that's going to control the browser. 1 second. I'm going to see if we get any kind of snapping here. Nope. Okay, so I'm going to try to just make my Grasshopper one half of my screen and Rhino the other half. That way we can kind of navigate both at the same time. Let's do that. And you see that, I've provided you with probably one of the best design buildings that you've ever seen, right? Like I was going for all the awards when I did this one, but this is a very, very let's just get to the point, very super simple. It is a number of floors slider, right? that as you move this around a little bit, it will create a building that stacks. So you should see by default just something that's colored and it's this color that you see is actually just a result. So I'm going to actually go over here to this display object result. I'm going to click this, right click it, and then turn preview off. I don't want to see that right now. We'll come back to that later. So just right click this one and turn the preview off. So I do that because I want to step through and show you what's happening. So when we design and plan a workflow, standard we teach people from start to finish, input, process, output. It's the way that it goes, right? It's what's your and oftentimes you kind of start with your output, like, oh, I want to get to this point, then you can work backwards from that. Some people think that way. Others might see it like I have a couple of lines to work with on my drawing, that's my input. But then on my output, I need to get to a full building from a couple of lines. So you can kind of work and piece it together. So for this, I've provided you with just a very, very simple input and a process. So we don't even really need to dive into, the math behind how did I make this building. Really doesn't matter. All you need to know is that my process is my own. Like I just created a custom parametric building, and your challenge as part of this workshop is to create your own custom building, your own custom parametric. This process can be as however you want to define it. So in essence, this pink area in the middle doesn't matter. It's whatever you want to put in here. It's however you design, right? And then the output, what I want to focus on, the output, I'm just taking the things that I'm making in my parametric modeling or my design process, and I'm converting them. I'm sort of imbuing them with more information by converting them into a BOM object. I'm just using, let's highlight this this roof, for example. So I'll preview this, right? I'm just extracting that surface from my Grasshopper script and telling it now, you are a roof. You are a roof and you have a specific construction. You could have openings, you could have an offset, but that roof now has more intelligence about it. And if I look at that type, if I put a data panel on the side of it, you can see that this is now, it's a BOM physical element roof. I'm doing that for everything in my script. So off to the left on my process, I have some kind of algorithm or script that I've made to give me floors, right? So I can just right click this and show that I've made some floors, right? So I've got my floors, I got my roof, and they all know that they are a particular type of object. So there's my list of floors. The same thing goes for my walls. So again, I wasn't going for anything special here, just trying to prove a point that this could be up to you. You could design an octagonal building or one that has a bunch of turns and angles and things. But as long as I pass it through this kind of conversion process, turning it into a BOM interoperable object, that's what matters. So now I have all my walls. And then I'm going to hide this wall just to show you that I'm just using also wall objects for my core walls as well. So that's just an extrusion again. So there's my four core walls. And then I have also columns as well. So let's preview the columns. The columns are generated based on this really simple grid that you get when you use this file. You can define a grid layout. You can just draw columns in if you want. If you prefer that, you can have an algorithm generating columns inside of a fancy model or massing. Whatever the logic that you want to apply, you can use that, as long as you then feed the location back into a BOM object. So let's quickly take a step back, because you see the roof, for example, the floor, all of these have a construction as an input. This construction, as far as our first method of, I just want to make a bunch of stuff and then I want to assign a material to that stuff, right? So I can actually create and provide a construction. This is how this object then learns about its materiality. So I can create a construction here, and just to reiterate, I'm just going to copy this object and disconnect this by right-clicking and disconnecting. I'll keep the location, but I'm just going to hide that wire just for ease of looking around. Excuse me. If I want to create a brand new construction, I can work backwards from this object, right? I can click and pull, and then I get my construction object here. Construction consists of a couple of layers and a name. You don't have to provide a name. I can click and drag a layer. That's going to give me a layer. That layer has a materiality and a thickness to it. So I could provide, this layer will consist of the following. It's going to be made of mass timber. It's going to be 4 inches thick, and it's going to be called whatever you want to call it. The same applies if you want to have a complex layering of something, right? If you want to add more layers, you can simply just add a new layer and give it more materiality that way. You can imagine, though, if we get more and more and more layers, excuse me, this can become really, really like a lot to look at, a lot of nodes, a lot of wires, a lot of different thicknesses and things. So that's why, like, I have to show you this first method, because this is how you can kind of connect the dots of, oh, this is how I can make a material and use an EPD in a calculation. Because this is effectively how even the material template is working. It's just doing all of this behind the scenes, using a curated list of materials. But what we'll do here, stepping back from the layers, I will grab a material, and that's asking me for a property, which could be, we have lots of material properties, but for our case, we're going to use a data set. So I'm going to say EC3, that's an easy one, and we'll say it's made out of timber, right? Some of you will see that there's an orange line after you automatically connect one of these. Just refresh that connection and it'll go away. So just click and drag and reconnect. So now what we've just made using this, our first method here of assigning it directly to the object, is we've made a roof that is made out of this wood I-joist, whatever material you want to select in here, crossland, strand board. But remember that EPD is consisting of lots and lots of data, lots and lots of different properties. So you may need to go back into the data source, and look up and see, okay, how is this calculation running? That's a little bit more nuanced. This is perfectly fine for an early stage, just gives you a good rule of thumb value for that. So this is effectively what our first method is like, right? We're just making a BOM object and assigning a material to it. And keep in mind, we also need to give it a thickness. So I'm just going to give it an arbitrary thickness here. Because I gave it a thickness, it now has, I can ask this object questions. I can ask it, what's your volume? What's your volume, roof? What are you made out of? What's your embodied carbon? I can start to ask these kinds of questions. So what I've done here is I've just gone through and just made some really quick assignments, right? So I've said for my, we'll step through these. For my roof, I want my roof to be made out of this. For my floor, use this particular data set up here, the second one. And then, kind of sequentially stepping down, you can do this, add one material to each of your objects. And then what we'll do here, I'm going to drag this. You can see, like, I have my inputs all connected to this second method right now. I'm going to actually just click and drag this little group over here. And I'm going to start just plugging in my objects here. My external walls to external walls, my core walls to core walls, and my columns with EPD to columns. And nothing changed because I have that previewer turned off for the results. But we could go turn that back on here. Let's see if we've got anything. Yeah. So it's still, basic rule of thumb, right, is like, you can see, like, we have a lot of the same things that were red. Some things are a little different, like our envelope has just become a little bit better than it was before. Before it was a little more red. But I mean, basic rule of thumb is like the bigger the thing, right, the worse it's going to be. But that's where you get these trade-offs, these interesting trade-offs between materials can take place. You can start to go in and maybe you want to change, maybe you want to change the strength of your concrete. Maybe you want a different provider. You want to source a different EPD, or you want to make your own EPD. You can do all of those things. So that's our first method. Now what you can do, because we want to talk about, you know, parametric design, like, because all this is then hooked up to my inputs, I can then just kind of quickly adjust on the fly, you know, change my length and my width of my building, right? If I want to maybe add more grids, I can do that. Like I said before, this isn't the fanciest example, especially, you know, we're all, you know, a room of architects or otherwise interested in good design and building. So this isn't, you know, cream of the crop, but you start to get this idea that you can make, you know, and program in algorithmically your own building, so your own kind of processes. So you can, because it's all always connected to the EPDs, we get our result at the end. So our element here is kind of upset because it's not liking one of our material assignments, which we can get at afterwards. But the big thing is here we're getting some results here. So let's talk about really quickly what's actually happening in the calculation itself. So the calculation is taking this list of elements that we've just compiled. So I'm going to drag this back over just so we can see. It's taking this list of element M for matter, just anything that has any kind of matter that constitutes it. This is an interface that we apply to a number of objects, namely physical objects that we want to have materiality for. So it's taking a list of all of these material, or all of these elements that have a material and a thickness and all of these things. I'm then applying a template. I can, or I don't have to, right? It gives you the option here to feed it a material template as an input, but you also have the opportunity to prioritize it. You can say true or false. I'm going to leave it false for now since we assigned our own EPDs. And again, you won't notice any changes in the results visually. Numerically, you may, but visually you won't, because unless your material assignments are drastically different, you won't see any visual reflection, because again, the bigger the thing, the worse the thing is, right? So then here I can shift my my metric, like what metric do I actually want to evaluate? If you want multiple, you can just simply add another one in here. But for this case, I just left it quite simple, just climate change total. All of our EPDs have that, so you can just apply that. There's an additional configuration input here. Feel free to explore, mess around with that, but that has some additional settings. I won't be going into that. And then I wanted to be sure to leave you with this element here, which is displaying our object results. This again just takes those objects as an input, gets our results. You don't really need this list item because we're only really asking for one thing right now. This is if you have multiple metrics you're trying to use. And then I want to display this particular property. So this is just a quick way to set up and to visualize your elements. You do not have to use this by any means. What you could easily do is start exploding your results, extract the numbers, shoot the numbers off to another database or another visualizer. Human UI, I've used that example a number of times. You can create any kind of interactive interface you're looking to expose your results. So we've stepped through method one, and that was a lot of information, and we're also kind of running low on time as well. Does anyone have any questions from what we've just gone through with this first method? Excuse me. My coughing break gives you a minute to think of any questions. I'm just going to pop over and see if you guys were able to follow along. I see a few VMs that are restarting. But most of you have, I see on here, little boxes and colored buildings, which is great. Let's see. Everything's looking pretty normal. Awesome. So let's see, where are we? We're 5 till 12 here. Our workshop ends in just a few minutes. I know that I went in depth on what the bomb is and to give you a really solid foundation so that you could explore these things more fully. The idea, the next step we would do if we had maybe another half-day session or another hour or two, is to let you guys then create your own parametric model. Effectively, just replace this pink area that I have, right, with your own. I just lost everything. Replace this, pink process area. This could be anything. This isn't necessarily a grasshopper class, so I'm not gonna, I wasn't planning on teaching you how to grasshopper or anything like that, or how to design a building algorithmically, which is a whole rabbit hole in and of itself. But this process of being able to connect your algorithmic design in Grasshopper and basically control the outcome of that through just a handful of sliders, right? Anything is possible, right? So I wanted to leave you with that as kind of a guide, right? So you have the opportunity to to assign materials in a very direct way and to look through different data sets and to get your own data, all of those options. And then the thing that we'll leave off on is this last component of this material template, which is down below. So here I'm just taking the same objects from up above, but you can see they don't actually have any constructions. I don't need that if I'm going to use a template. The template itself is trying to utilize just human language a lot more, right? We want to be writing things down and speaking through things rather than just using componentry to get to where we need. But it's basically going through and we create a single construction just using a basic, how do we want to layer this element up? So I'm providing just a number of materials through this list. I'm providing a number of thicknesses as a list as well, and creating a construction for my roof. So that's how you can very quickly build, a very complicated buildup of materials and thicknesses just by adding these to a list instead of doing them kind of like one component at a time. And what our template is going to do on the other side, what we're not seeing here is what we've pulled from this pull template. This template has inside of it all of our EPD connectivity that we want to expose. Yes, I see Moon Young, you have your hand up. Go ahead. What's your question?
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Oh yeah. So this, you just said we can replace this the process. So any geometry, I guess, that we can just add on. For example, if I have any facade material, facade geometry, then I can just copy one of those and then connect, and then it will kind of evaluate the how much carbon it will emit, or
yes,
is it working?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So the key thing for everyone to take away from this is, for that to work, you need to basically convert Rhino geometry or Grasshopper geometry into a BOM object. That BOM object is the thing that's going to facilitate the calculation. So sorry, my dog's now barking, but the critical step here is that you transition from a raw Grasshopper into a BOM object. That's the main thing. So if you take this, right, if you take this, I think I have a surface, right? If I take the surface and plug that into the element in, it's going to error out because it wants the BOM object, it wants the interoperable object, not the Grasshopper object. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. So basically, the geometry thickness or the other properties are not affected on your evaluation, but I have to convert to bone data set and having some material property within this data set, and then I have to assign some properties of the material. So which means rhino geometry doesn't do much on this, right?
Right. So there are a number of ways, like if you're not like single surface modeling, like you've just kind of alluded to, like you might have a thickness or something already, right? You might have volume. There are a number of other methods, and I'm happy to follow up with you on something that works with volumetric material takeoffs. That's probably a better way forward for something that you've already modeled explicitly. That's something that you can, what we call is just a bulk, like a bulk volume material, and you can do that as well. And that's a super easy thing that kind of saves you from rationalizing everything that you've worked really hard to build, right? If you come at this with like a fully built and designed facade, and then I ask you to like, okay, well, strip away all of the volumetric properties and give me just the surface, and then just explain through, you know, thicknesses and stuff like that. You don't have to do that. Let me just show you the solid bulk method of working, which is it's slightly different, but you'll still need, you know, to know about the material assignments and things like that. So if you don't mind, Moon Young, could you send me an email, and we can follow up. We can follow up together outside of this.
Sure, sure.
And I see the question, Maha, are we going to have files to work on after the workshop? Yes, absolutely. So the email that I sent you guys to get you all gathered together in the space today, I'll just follow up with that email with a zipped file of everything that we've gone through today. And then for anyone who's looking to build on what we've learned already, just follow up with me there through that email address. You can reach me anytime. I know we've covered like a ton of information, and there's certainly like so many more aspects of the LCA toolkit that we haven't covered, like solid modeling, for example. That's one that we could go into even further. There's obviously some other activities like showing you how to make those connections. I'll make myself available to each one of you as workshop attendees to, you know. Oh, great! Thank you, Daniel. The zip file is available in the studio already, so you can already do that. So I don't have to email. I will send an email just in case you missed this message, but you can go up to the top in the resource folder and download it directly from there. Thanks for the tip. Okay, so lots and lots of other things. I'll just quickly go through this. I know we're just a few minutes over already, so for those of you that can hang out for just a minute, I want to show you kind of the next thing that we're excited about. You know, what the title of this workshop was LCA and ESG. LCA only covers like a portion of that, right? There's still so many other things as far as like environmental, social, and governance aspect of things. So what I'm going to do just very quickly, I'm going to I'm moving away from my VM. I'm going to go and focus on the presentation one more time to wrap this up. Healthy building materials prototypes. I wanted to get you guys involved in the actual code process of the BOM and show you that it's accessible, show you how to load it on your machine. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have time to do that because it will require logging into GitHub Desktop and, you know, going through and cloning something. But this is something I encourage you to do after this workshop. If you don't have a GitHub account, please, you know, set one up, and we can begin collaborating even more through that platform. But you would just go up to the top of this, you can click this link in the PDF or copy paste it into your web browser. Click on code, drop down, and clone that repo in Visual Studio. You just need to rebuild this as a new toolkit that's not actually in the installer. And that's why it's called a prototype, and it would look like this on your canvas. It gives you a nice flag that says, hey, this is kind of a risky component. It's subject to change. It's a prototype. It's not been it doesn't go through the same rigorous testing as we put our other beta ready toolkits through. So you get a UI tag, but we're beginning to build out this healthy building materials prototypes toolkit. Eventually we'll move into an official beta installer. But for now, we'd love to get more of you involved. It can perform very basic healthy building materials evaluations in the exact same way that we just went through with the LCA toolkit. So it's assigning materials through constructions or using templates. So just to show you, we look forward to working with you and understanding, what you're going to do with it. If you have any questions outside of the workshop, you can reach me at my email. You can reach out to Al or any of us that have joined in from BH. Travis, Ofik, Alessio, myself, we all thank you for joining and spending this morning session with us. I've put together a few more links here in this final slide. BOM XYZ is where you can download the latest beta, which is version 6.3, which is what we've been using today. GitHub.com/BOM. That's how you reach our code base, and then documentation. Anyone who's looking for the API, just let's follow up and let's talk. I'd love to work with you on the next thing that you're building as well. But I'll close it there. Yes, so if anyone has any final remaining questions, please, now's your chance. Otherwise, we'll just follow up an email. But yeah, seriously, thank you again for joining, and really hope that really hope you've enjoyed it.